Have you ever poured your entire soul into something? I mean, really given it everything. Your time, your passion, your heart, only to hold it up to the world and be met with silence? That feeling, that hollow echo where you expected applause, or at least a whisper of acknowledgement, it's a heavy one. It's the kind of weight that makes you question everything. Was it worth it? Does any of this even matter? For an old man named Kael, that silence was the loudest sound in his life. He was a woodcarver in a village so small it seemed to be hiding from the rest of the world, tucked away in the fold of a great misty valley. His workshop was filled with the ghosts of his creations, hundreds of tiny wooden birds. He held one in his palm now, a falcon, carved from a single piece of dark walnut. Its wings were poised for flight, every feather so intricately detailed you could almost feel the wind beneath them. It was, by all accounts, perfect. And to Kael, it was completely and utterly meaningless. He sighed, the sound lost in the scent of pine and sawdust. Today, he decided, would be the last day, the last bird, the last time he would let his hopes take flight, only to watch them fall.
Where truth meets imagination. Welcome to Facts and Fiction.
Kael hadn't always felt this way. As a boy, he believed magic lived in the heart of the forest. He believed that every piece of wood held a secret, a soul waiting to be released. While other boys learned to wield axes to fell trees, Kael learned to use a chisel to free the life within them. His hands, now wrinkled and worn, moved with a memory of their own. He could look at a rough block of birch and see a robin, its chest puffed out in song. He could feel the curve of an eagle's wing in a gnarled piece of oak. For him, carving wasn't a craft. It was a conversation between his soul and the soul of the wood. His dream was simple: to create something so beautiful it would make someone, just one person, stop and feel a sense of wonder. He imagined his birds sitting in the windows of homes, catching the morning light, reminding people of the sky, of freedom, of the quiet beauty that exists all around us. But the years went by. He carved and carved. He filled his shells with silent sparrows, stoic owls, and soaring hawks. The villagers were kind. "Lovely work, Kael," they'd say, a polite nod before continuing on their way. They saw the wood, the skill. But Kael felt they never saw the magic. They never saw the soul. No one ever bought one. No one ever asked for one. His birds became just another part of the village scenery, as overlooked as the moss on the stone walls. The world outside the valley was changing. Stories would trickle in of great artists in faraway cities who built towering statues and painted canvases that sold for fortunes. Their names were spoken with reverence. Kael would listen and then look at his little wooden bird. What was this compared to that? A speck of dust in a hurricane, a silent chirp in a thunderstorm. The doubt began as a whisper and grew into a roar. "You are small, Kael. Your work is small. Your life is small." And so he found himself in his workshop on that gray afternoon, holding the perfect falcon, feeling like a failure. He placed it on a shelf, crowded with other forgotten dreams, and turned his back, ready to lock the door for good. That's when he saw her. A little girl no older than 7 stood in the doorway. She was small and quiet, with wide, curious eyes. He'd seen her before, a fleeting shadow lingering at the edge of his workshop, always disappearing if he looked for too long. But today, she didn't run. She just stood there, clenching something in her small hands. Kael, his heart heavy with his decision, just grunted, "Workshop's closing." The girl didn't say a word. She slowly walked forward, her eyes not on him, but on the shells filled with birds. She walked with a kind of reverence, as if she had just entered a sacred forest.
Her gaze touched every single bird, from the smallest wren to the largest eagle. Finally, she stopped in front of him and held out her hands. In her palms was a flower. It wasn't a real flower. It was clumsily made from twigs, moss, and a single bright red autumn leaf for a petal. It was a child's humble attempt at creating beauty. She looked up at him, her eyes shining, and offered him the twig flower. Kael was speechless. For years he had waited for someone to offer him a coin, but this was something else entirely. It wasn't a transaction, it was an offering, a gift, an acknowledgement from one creator to another. A feeling he hadn't felt in years stirred in his chest. He looked from the simple twig flower to the masterpiece falcon on the shelf. In that moment, the falcon felt cold and lifeless, while the little girl's offering felt more alive than anything he had ever made. He reached out, his hand trembling slightly, and took the flower. Then, without a second thought, he reached for the falcon, the bird that represented all his failure, and gently placed it in her hands. "For you," he whispered. Her gasp was tiny, but it filled the entire workshop. She held the bird as if it were a living thing, her fingers tracing the delicate wings. Kael expected her to run off, to show her new treasure to her parents. But she did something he never would have imagined. She turned and walked out of the workshop, not towards her home, but towards the village square. In the center of the square stood an old withered oak tree that had lost its leaves long ago. It was a stark, skeletal figure against the gray sky. The little girl walked right up to it, stood on her toes, and carefully placed the wooden falcon on one of its bare branches. And then she just stood back and watched it. Kael watched too from his doorway. The bird, so lifeless on his dusty shelf, was transformed. Perched on that branch, it looked like it had just landed, its sharp eyes scanning the valley. It had a story now. It had a purpose. A few moments later, an old woman walking by stopped. She looked at the bird, then at the little girl, and a slow smile spread across her face. Then a farmer leading his cart paused. Soon a small group of villagers had gathered, their faces turned upward, a shared moment of quiet wonder in their eyes. The next day, Kael looked out his window and saw that another object had appeared on the tree. Someone had hung a small, polished river stone from a lower branch. A day later, a string of colorful beads was wrapped around another. The withered oak was slowly, quietly coming back to life. It was becoming a canvas for the village's forgotten beauty, a testament to their shared hopes. And it all started with a single wooden bird. Kael turned back to his workbench. He picked up the little twig flower the girl had given him and placed it carefully on his windowsill where the light could catch it. It was the most precious thing he owned. Then he picked up a fresh block of pine. As his chisel touched the wood, he wasn't thinking about the great artists in the cities. He wasn't thinking about fame or fortune. He was thinking about a little girl's smile and a village that had found a reason to look up. His work wasn't small. It was a ripple.
We are so often told to make a big splash in the world, to be a wave that crashes against the shore. We measure our worth by the noise we make, by the number of people who know our name. But what if our true purpose isn't to be a wave at all? What if it's to be a single, quiet drop that creates a ripple? A ripple that touches one life, then another in ways we may never even see. You are not just a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a single drop. Your passion, your kindness, your art, your unique gift, it doesn't need to change the whole world to be meaningful. It just needs to change a world. And sometimes that world belongs to one person who was waiting in a doorway, ready to see the magic you thought no one else could. So pick up your tool, whether it's a pen, a keyboard, a kind word, or a helping hand. Don't worry about the applause. Don't worry about the silence. Just create your ripple. Someone, somewhere, is waiting for it. And for them, it will change everything.